This is the next installment of our 3 lessons for all levels and all ages. This is trimester number 2 in 2025, and I am excited to be talking about some elusive topics that are often, I don't know, thought of as quite elusive simply because people define these concepts very individually. And this has to do with time and feel and pocket. And some of these things are a bit elusive because you can't hear them unless you have another musician or another musical idea rubbing up against the initial music idea, right? So thankfully, we do have another musician with us, and that is a dear friend of mine, Mr. Matt Booth. Um, we are really excited to be bringing you nothing but the finest in music education, which is free, and it is streaming on the NGO Radio Terra YouTube channel every single week. Me, myself, and I, and today with my special guest, are here every Wednesday at 4 p.m. So you can find me here. And like I said, today we're talking about pocket and talking about groove and time. And without further ado, we're going to bring some music back, and then I'm going to discuss what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it. But we're just going to give you guys some vibes. Let's do evidence.
Okay.
All right. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Yes, indeed. So I chose this particular groove right here because I felt like he and I could actually practice a couple different things. This song is special because it's got some hits that are inherent in the melody, and then it's also got a cool swinging bridge. And you can interpret this in a lot of different ways, and I like the idea of putting a hip hop groove behind it. It also helps to outline really where the time is, and I'd like to identify something that is one of the obvious aspects of playing a beat is the time part. It's the thing that you feel is completely solid or you feel might be wavering but it is the thing that tells the truth about what it is that we do. It is quite obvious oftentimes what time is. The feel is the thing that's not so obvious, and so I'd like to demonstrate myself playing to what I'd call 12 o'clock in the time, and I'm going to have Matt play behind me in a way that is consistent yet always behind. Mm-hmm. So we'll walk in the same way, okay. And I'll try and maintain my 12 o'clock, and you can just keep playing behind me. So
do like 2:30.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now give me your version of 12 o'clock as well, okay. And I'll keep my 12 o'clock. Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So, I don't know, did you notice anything particular? And I'm not sure if you have enough mic-ish, so yeah. How does that feel to you?
I mean, both feel good to me, and they're both different. My like personal preference is that there's a variety, whether it's between whether in the course of a song or in the course of a set. To me, there needs to be a variety of those feels, and there's more options because there's also the beyond 12 o'clock, which is one of us is pushing. But to me, that helps the beat widen. When we're each at 12 o'clock, it does feel good, but too much of it for too long, it starts to get a little boring. And to me, like the niceness of feel and the wonder, and you mentioned elusive, like the elusiveness of what makes feel interesting is that there's a variety of how the rhythm section is playing behind, on, or ahead of the beat without actually, and this is the sort of like key aspect of it, without actually slowing down or speeding up.
Correct. Exactly. and that's the main thing. You know, what I'm demonstrating is also that I'm listening to him as an accompanist. He's as we're playing duo, I'm also listening to him as a soloist. So he's performing a solo, and I'm also having to sing the melody in my head. So let me demonstrate again what that's like. And this time, he and I are going to play the melody of this particular song, Evidence, in unison rather than me sort of comping the melody in my left hand and playing time. He and I are going to actually like we're going to make the hits, I guess. So I'll do a groove off top. Okay. My bad. And you know, I thought the bridge was twice as long. Let's go back and do that one more time. Again. I want to also emphasize this every single lesson, which is that things in music are not perfect, and when you stop or let your brain get carried away with your quote unquote mistake, you're losing traction in the music. You're losing your focus and you're losing the whole point and purpose. But it has literally taken me 30 years of music professionalism to understand this and to really get to the point where I can actually forgive myself, because I'm an absolute maniac when it comes to music, who has really kind of ridiculous expectations of myself in every musical situation, so much so to the point where I will think bad thoughts about my own musical integrity or about my own personal integrity simply because I made some little music mistake. And that's like a ridiculous mental deficiency that I find exists in many creatives and many artists. And I say it's ridiculous because it's not realistic. And honestly, if you carried that into a macro perspective of life, you wouldn't finish big projects. You wouldn't finish the dishes. You wouldn't finish dinner if everything had to be perfect. So on a micro perspective of creative magnitude, you're not going to finish the phrase if you let that moment get you down. So, yes, we've played this head thousands of times, and yes, we also were maybe playing it incorrectly at times, but then we get back on track, and all of a sudden it's a vibe, and no one knew any better. Everybody in the audience, all of you out here in the internet world, are possibly watching this, and I doubt you are judging. So, and if you are, we'll get you next time. So that's my little rant about perfectionism and it being sort of the enemy of completion, right? Let's go ahead and do something creative and fun. Let's make a little loop. I'm going to make a loop. And also the fun thing is that Matt can't hear what he's looping, so this is sort of like a rhythm roulette in a sense. And I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to go and do this. Check this out. That's fire. So what I noticed is that in the process of making this loop, Matt and I are negotiating what is really the the loop that I created is in and of itself the entire feel. Matt, when he lays into this, he's going for the most center of the beat possible because we're both listening to a click. It could be a situation where if he notices that something about what I played is just behind the beat, he'll negotiate that. And I think that that's something to, it's something for those of you out here who are just beginning, you're always trying to get in the center of the beat. It's only when you start to be comfortable with the person that you're playing with or be comfortable with the loop that you're playing with that you can start to afford to play back inside of the pocket or ahead inside of the pocket. Mm-hmm. I'm going to demonstrate something real quick just by myself that shows aspects of my limbs dragging or going ahead or simulating a wider beat versus a more narrow beat. So for instance, if everything is in the center of the beat, it could sound like this. If I want to go ahead and put the hi-hat back on the back side of the beat, I have to, be very comfortable with that. So here we go. Add something to that?
Yeah.
So I think that gives Matt a much larger, a considerably large space to lay into a groove. Because if everything is balancing on the tightrope of a very centered quarter note feel, then anything that Matt plays that's not directly in sync with that feel can be felt as maybe a mistake or just off. But if I go ahead and give Matt some flams, right, as opposed to give him then what Matt has is he's got a much wider space to work with, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3 is this is a very narrow space of 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a very narrow interpretation. This is a much wider interpretation of this pulse. brotherhood is strong. The brotherhood of Mats. The brotherhood of Mats. 2 Mats. It's a mat attack. So it's all about trust. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's why there's all the jokes about drummers and bass players. That's why there is such a thing as a pocket amongst drummers and bass players. And of course, there's a pocket amongst any two things, any two musical ideas. Once they come together, form a pocket. But it is because I hold down the time. Matt holds down a version of the time plus the root notes of the chords that are the foundation of a singer's song or a horn player's improvisation. Matt, the bass player, is the link between the tonal world and the rhythmic world. So is the role of like any rhythm section player, I suppose. However, the bass and the drums, that's the thing. In a jazz context, my ride cymbal is as good as my kick drum. Right? So as long as my kick drum is solid or my ride cymbal pulse is solid, the bass player has a lot to go off of and a lot to trust. I suppose that there is such a thing as having natural time, which allows for there to be some maneuvering, some space, but it's about that melody should sound pretty much the same on the way out as it did the way in. And that's a telltale sign of whether or not the time has moved. Oftentimes, though, if the time has moved, it doesn't mean that it's a piece of crap music. I've listened to a lot of classic recordings that they speed up.
As long as it feels good.
As long as it feels good. That's the main essence of what it is that we do. We got to make it feel good, and we got to really show up at each moment because that moment is very unique and it will never be played again. So without wasting any more moments, we're going to play a bit more and kind of head on out. I wonder what time it is. What time is it?
It is 4:26.
4:26. All right, cool.
I would add one thing. What we're talking about.
Yeah, I was thinking about something else to add. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say like the different kind of like placements of the time and how we're playing it. It also might depend on the musical context. Like if it's a super down the middle sort of pop song or recording session, we might opt to play sort of in the middle, right on the beat. If it's like a hip hop R&B sort of thing, we might be a little behind the beat. If it's like a rock kind of thing, we might be right on top or even pushing the beat. If it's a more sort of exploratory, creative jazz sort of thing, we might be able to play all over the place. So it also depends on what is the context of the music you're performing. It's not every scenario isn't going to welcome every sort of like possible exploration you've made. So there is something to be said about knowing the time and place to implement what you've been working on. So these sort of like different ways of playing around with rhythm or playing around with the beat, there are different scenarios or different contexts to know how and when to implement these sort of ideas.
I wholeheartedly concur. And along with that, I think there's some utility in knowing how to save a musical situation as well. So let's say you're in a jazz context and you're intent on being crisp with your time and demonstrative, yet expressive, but you're trying to be, showing a bit more of a metronomic feel. Let's say that's my headspace, and the bass player I'm playing with would like to drag behind the beat more so than I'd like. What you should do, or what is a possible remedy to this situation, is to play more upbeats. So let's play a blues,
okay,
and go ahead and be a little bit messier with your time and deliberately dragging.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Not in the same way that you showed that consistent behind the beatness.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go. A blues. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3. Great. So, in a moment's notice, I realized that the bass player that Matt was acting like was going to drive the time into the ground. And unless I started to pretty much play an upbeat on after every quarter note, we were going to be in trouble. Let's go back, put your time at 12 o'clock, same thing, and notice how I don't have to do it that same way. 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3. Right? So I can put as many upbeats as I want in that feel, but in the other feel, I literally had to put upbeats or else it was going to be an issue. Let's do the inverse where the bass player that you're going to act like is going to be somebody that just rushes the hell out of the time. All right? And I'm going to try and hold it down and show you what I would do in that context. Yet another blues. 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3. So, and that one's a little bit tougher because I think once you find yourself out of the pocket in a rushed manner, it's even less groovy than when you're out of the pocket in a dragging manner, I suppose. And then again, this is also based on what genre you're in. I think dragging swing is really painful, right? Rushing, really badly rushed funk is also very painful.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And of course, it's like human beings can shift a little bit. Unless you're playing with a click track, it's really, really different. So it's just something to think about. And this is not anything to be really, 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 really rigid about, but it's just something to keep in mind. And I think this is about being very flexible as a rhythm section member and just knowing kind of how to be when you're in each different situation. So, like Matt said, the context is everything. Knowing where to put your time in that genre is actually the small, subtle differences that make that thing authentic. There's something to be said for that in the cracks time feel that is neither straight nor swung. Let's play a little second line for him. We'll play like a blues, but we'll second line it out. And we're going to demonstrate some of that between the swing and the straight type of a feel. 1, 2. in the whole, this is extremely swung, and this is extremely straight. And it's somewhere in between both of those worlds where you're going. And you know, how you can get there is by utilizing the triplet, right? As opposed to. So, it isn't some hyper abstract, nebulous position where you're constantly in between this literal place between those two worlds. It's just that you're operating using the language of the straight 16th note or 8th note and the triplet, and that's what gives it that fluid kind of in between the cracks thing, right? So just to demystify that for you guys out there. Yes, indeed. So that's kind of like that's my favorite feel. I think that is at the core and the backbone of Black American music styles. Is at the core of understanding how to play swing, and it is the kind of the grand rhythm of so many different things that you can find today that are popular. So do your research on the second line rhythm, do your research on New Orleans, and I would just like to thank Matt Booth for coming over and sharing some of his expertise with us today. He's one of my favorite bass players here in the Triangle. And we're going to keep on working together and keep on making some music. So without further ado, we're going to send you off. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. You have anything else to add?
I mean, I always have things to add, but we're good, yeah. I feel like we covered a lot of important considerations.
We absolutely did. Let's make one more loop to head him out with. I'll let you start this time.
Okay.
Tempo, do you want?
Are you gonna put
I'll tap it. I'll tap it for you. Thank y'all. See y'all next week. Appreciate you, Matt.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Woo! I'm glad that they got a chance to hear some like in studio, hands on,
Mm-hmm.
time field